Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of our show. Today, we are honored to have the one and only Brad Wolf. He's the executive director and co-founder of Peace Action Network of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a former lawyer, prosecutor, professor, and community college dean. He writes for various publications. And in fact, that is how I found him. Hello, Brad. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing great. You're also a founder of an organization called Merchants of Death War Tribunal. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you for raising that because it is another important issue. So the Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal is an effort that myself, Kathy Kelly, and Nick Bonner, two other longtime peace activists, have put together where we decided to follow the money behind war and find out what is driving so much war across the globe. And of course, it's profit. It's corporate profit, which is driving much of this. So we decided to try weapons manufacturers in the court of public opinion at a tribunal next November 2023, November 10th through the 13th, 2023. And the idea is to follow the public tribunals of the Bertrand Russell Tribunal of 1966, where the American government was put on trial for crimes against humanity in Vietnam. And then in 2005, there was a public tribunal putting American government again on trial for Iraq. And it was the World Tribunal on Iraq. So this time, instead of putting the government on trial, we wanted to go after the corporate faces that are driving government, because government doesn't do anything unless the corporate faces tell them to. So we, quote, indicted 4 United States weapons manufacturers. And of course, this lacks legal authority, but we think we're doing something more powerful at this point than trying them in court, because we're trying them in the court of public opinion. And we're doing so by bringing a lot of very well-known names, legal judges and jurists, into this process. So the idea is we serve subpoenas on November 10th to Raytheon, to Boeing, to Lockheed Martin, and General Atomics. Those 4 weapons manufacturers are emblematic of the entire U.S. war industry in that they drive war for profit. It's blood money, clear and simple. So we went down to Washington. We served these subpoenas on those corporations in Arlington, Virginia. There was a group of us. We were joined with Medea Benjamin and Ann Wright and David Swanson and a number of other people. And the subpoena was a subpoena that we had created from an actual subpoena where we're demanding documentation evidencing their complicity in war crimes. And we've begun collecting testimony from victims of these war crimes. So we're looking at victims from Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen, Gaza, and we are doing video recorded interviews as to what happened to them, where they were, what the date was, and what casualties did they suffer. And then we are collecting testimony from military analysts, again, video recorded testimony, who are able to establish the products that these weapons manufacturers created, the planes, the weapons, when they were deployed, where they were deployed, and connect that with the victim testimony to demonstrate that these weapons manufacturers knowingly sold products that were killing civilians. They were killing non-combatants. This was not something that was a surprise to them. They were well aware of, we were well aware of it, that was happening, the public. They were certainly aware of it. And then we're also collecting testimony from lawyers, international attorneys who are able to talk about crimes against humanity, war crimes, and then the domestic crimes of bribery and theft, which we also charge them with. So all of this then will be edited and presented to an international tribunal next November, made up of jurists from all around the world who will deliberate on the evidence and render a verdict and write a report. And that will be live streamed. We're hoping to have people all around the world watching that. We're working with universities right now to have professors integrate that into their curriculum, because we want this to be educational, particularly to young people. We think they need to know why wars happen and need to understand America's role in creating war. So that's where we're at in a nutshell.
Now, interestingly, well, first of all, I like the way that you said you're going to publicize it through the these different educational sources. I trust that you'll be making sure that all of us in the independent media get the necessary feeds to put that out as well, because I think that is one thing that will be ignored by the mainstream media, as they've ignored a whole lot of stuff. It simply won't make it on the radar. So it's something that we will have to explode on our own to ensure that a whole lot of people get to see it. Good for many of us now that simple platforms like TikTok are starting to get deep penetration into the folks that we want to hear these types of messages. Now, I noticed that you've had people around you like Cornel West and a few others that I see on your website that came out and gave you an assistant, I imagine, to do all of this.
I was able to interview Cornel West November 6th. Which was wonderful. He was a big supporter of the tribunal when we first approached him. And so had the pleasure of interviewing him. And what we wanted to do was have people like that provide the moral indictment towards weapons manufacturers. And of course, Dr. West does that magnificently. I mean, he is in many ways the moral voice of America today. And so that was wonderful testimony from him. Just this week, I was able to interview Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, who was General Powell's chief of staff.
He is great. I interviewed him once. So yes.
Did you? Yeah, he's wonderful. And he was there. He saw everything close up. He knows very well how the U.S. war industry works, the influence peddling that goes on. So that was a fascinating interview. Christian Sorensen we interviewed, who's another veteran military analyst. Matthew Ho, same thing, veteran military analyst. William Astore, I'll be interviewing early next week, another veteran. It's amazing how many veterans, come out afterwards and realize the horrible damage that's being done by their service. Ann Wright, also on the panel, John Pilger, Richard Falk, Bill Quigley, Marjorie Cohn. These are all very big names within the resistance community and the peace community. So we're happy to have them on board and contributing. Noam Chomsky, we were emailing him back and forth. He gave us a wonderful written endorsement, all for it. So we think we're making progress. And with names like that, we hope to get traction in the public. And with folks like you putting it on air, and everybody else, we're going to try to hit social media really hard.
It's interesting because Wilkerson came right out a few years ago. I think he wrote while you're speaking, I was looking for the book that we spoke to him about at one of our colleges out here, speaking about we are in a bad, I think it was called Wilkerson foretells the demise of the United States. That's the article that I wrote for, when he came out here to Houston. So, I mean, getting guys like Wilkerson out there, it's, that alone speaks well for it. So, so you said you're going to be speaking to these folks over the next few months. One thing is to do that in the background and then have a big splash in November, or the other way to do that is to, as you do these solid interviews, to put them out there. How are you going to do this? Are you going to have intermittent releases and news releases and et cetera, so that you can sort of build up to the tribunal, or how are you going to do it?
Correct. We're going to be having excerpts from each of these interviews released, just to try to keep a constant stream of media out there. So as we do these interviews, we're going to be taking 5 and 10 minute excerpts to be able to put out there on social media. We also plan to have an action every month all the way for the next year leading up to November. So the serving of the subpoenas was a wonderful action, got a lot of good video and a lot of press with that. January 18th, Kathy Kelly and Bill Quigley are going to be doing a webinar on WIRN, which is the War Industry Resistors Network, if you're familiar with Ken Jones and that. So we'll be doing events like that all the way up, trying to keep folks like you engaged with what we're doing so the word can continually be out there. Because as you said, we don't want to just spring it on everybody next year. We need to keep the attention up. And right now, there's a lot of excitement about it. We're getting a lot of people writing in, and the people who joined us in Washington to serve the subpoenas were very excited. And we get emails each day from people who want to be more and more involved. Melvin Goodman, who was a CIA chief and wrote the book National Insecurity, is in contact and has agreed to sit for an interview. I mean, these are incredibly prestigious folks with great institutional knowledge. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, we're going to put out as much information as we can over the next year.
Well, that is like great to know because, like I said, we have to stop twiddling our fingers and saying, look at what they've done. Look at what they've done to us, and as opposed to what we are going to force them to do. In other words, we're going to educate the public so that the public will assert their rights. Because right now, like I tell a lot of my audience right now, is too often we feel like impotent. We feel like there's nothing we can do. And when folks like you do exactly what you're doing, you allow folks to use their self-empowerment to actually execute and do things. Okay, Brad, if somebody wants to be a part or help or whatever it is that you guys do at Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal, what would they do?
You can go to www.merchantsofdeath.org. And there are a number of take action steps in there. For instance, right now, there is a template of the subpoena that we served on the corporations that they can download, print, and they can serve it wherever, in whatever state they're in. If Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or General Atomics or Boeing has an office in their state, which I'm sure they do because they make it a point to get offices in every state, serve the subpoena on the offices there. This is a general subpoena that they can download and have their own action, take pictures of the action and send it to us at the email address on the website. So that's one thing they can do. The other thing they can do is there's an anonymous tip box in there. So if they have insider information from having worked at any of these corporations that they feel would be beneficial to the tribunal, they can submit anonymously if they desire information about that. If they want to join us and work with us, this is all volunteer based. We are happy to have researchers involved, social media technicians involved to help us. Please email us. The email address is there. You can send information and become involved. The goal is to get this active in every state across the country. Let everybody know that the Merchants of Death are active in every state and something can be done by each person.
Brad, this is a very important work that you do. Brad Wolf, Executive Director and Co-founder of Peace Action Network of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Thank you so kindly for having been a part of Politics Done Right.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.